Indiana. News, sports, education, and entertainment. Wake up, GI, with Jeffrey Smith. Brought to you by the Geary Community Schools Corporation.
All right, everybody, we are back. Once again, I want to give a shout out to my guy, Councilman at Large for the great city of Gary, Mike Brown. Also, another shot for our honorable mayor, Mr. Jerome Prince. And you know what? The trifecta is in effect right now because we've got Dr. Elaine. She's in the studio, and I've been teasing her for the past couple of days and definitely all morning. And I've had the opportunity to kind of chat with her while we were getting set up for this interview, and she is a very interesting woman. I'm looking forward to talking with her, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it and introduce you, of course, to our wonderful audience. So first of all, just introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff. My name is Dr. Elaine Ferguson. I am a native of Detroit, Michigan, Highland Park in particular, and I grew up during the 60s. I'm a baby boomer.
Oh.
Decided when I was 10 years of age that I wanted to be a physician.
Yeah.
And I never changed my mind. So I went to college at Brown University. And,
a Brown girl. All right. Yeah.
I went to Brown and I attended medical school at Duke University.
Ooh,
and after living,
yeah, I know all about these places.
Yes. And after being in the South, I decided to return to my roots, to the Midwest, and came to Chicago, completed my residency while I was at the University of Chicago, and I've been in the Chicago area for over 40 years.
Now, let me just go ahead and tell you right now that I envy everything that you just said. First of all, we had similar paths. I ended up I lived in the South. I went to Hampton, and then I made it down to Tuskegee for veterinary school. But here's where you went. You went to Brown. A school that I had to do a summer program up in Cornell, but they used to tell me a lot in Ithaca, and they used to talk about Brown a lot around there. And then, of course, you went down to Tobacco Road, where Duke is, and you know about Duke basketball. I have to hate that school, but I appreciate their academics. And so you went to those two great universities. First, I got to ask you, what was it like getting in it? I mean, were there challenges then? I mean, obviously we hear about, the color barrier and things of that nature. Kind of tell me about it, because here's not only are you African American, but you're a woman, and you want to go out here and get into medicine. You want to go to these top schools to do it. Who do you think you are?
Yes, who I think I am. My parents, especially my mother, always instilled in me that I could do anything I wanted to do and be anything I wanted to be, and that was the community that I grew up in. It was a community of primarily Southerners who moved to the North seeking a better life, and they wanted a better life for their children.
Yes.
So it was a natural progression for me to take advantage of the opportunities that were a result of the Civil Rights Movement. So I went to Brown primarily because I had class friends who were a couple years ahead of me at Highland Park High School who attended, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And I would honestly share with you, I really did enjoy attending Brown because, I just said this yesterday to my husband, it was very much like attending an HBCU. We had our own world. There were enough black students where we studied together, we partied together, we took classes together, we lived together. So it was, yes, an Ivy League experience in one regard in terms of the advantages that we had, but we were a community that was intact and complete, and we really did support each other and uplifted each other and encouraged each other, and that helped us to get through because it was not a welcoming place by any means.
Yeah, because see, that's what I was going to ask you, because first, I mean, when you think obviously of the Ivy Leagues, you think of the Harvards, the Yales, the Stanfords, Princetons, and then of course Brown. And I remember when I first ever thought about Brown University, it was Amy Carter. That was where she went to school there, the first daughter. And I knew some people that were familiar with Brown, and it always seemed like a very, kind of a laid back type of atmosphere in comparison to a lot of the other Ivy Leagues. But you're saying there was also the real racism there as well.
Yes, absolutely. Where do we go in America where we don't experience racism?
Yeah.
What was unique about Brown was that it was a very liberal and open-minded. We had a curriculum that was quite unique, and it was a result of the student movement of the late 60s. So it was quite different in the sense it had very rigorous academic standards.
Right.
But there was room for creativity and learning, and it was a very exciting intellectual environment in that regard.
Yeah. Now, before we kind of get into, because this is going to set off your journey and what we're going to talk about as it relates to your book, but I want to ask you this, and this is kind of a question that's just popped into my mind right now. You know, I kind of sit and I listen to people that have had the opportunity and privileges to go to like a Harvard or be educated on a very high level. I mean, I hate to invoke his name into this conversation, but even our one of our justices of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, in one of his books, kind of wrote about it, and he used this to allude to the fact of his attendance at Yale, and then when he later was clerking, about why he ended up doing a 180 on affirmative action. He kind of brought up the situation in which he found himself. Every time he was in these situations, or he got jobs or positions, people were assuming that he was some type of quota gift. Now, as I get back and I'm sitting here, and we don't have to go down this route, but I'm just asking you about Brown, because I mean, you got into a very prestigious school on your own merits, and sometimes don't you want people to just know that, or do you just say, screw what they think, I'm going to go out here and do what I got to do?
Well, it serves a purpose
in
terms of opening doors because of the so-called prestige and acknowledgement of the high standards that the university has. But I take issue with what Clarence Thomas has said about quotas, because there were quotas that existed long before we arrived. The quotas of privilege.
Yeah, there we go.
And we don't talk about that.
Nice.
So what I have learned in terms of the whole notion of quotas is that you can't measure someone's potential. Tests are the means by which we reinforce the social system and those who have privileges.
I like that.
So, yes, absolutely. So when we look at possibility, when we look at brilliance and creativity and genius, everyone has a unique capacity.
Yeah.
So I have no qualms about being an affirmative action baby. I'm grateful that I was, because of the sacrifices that I know my people made for me to be there, and I used my opportunity to come back and serve my community.
Yeah, and the reality is that even if doors were kind of open for you, you still had to do the work.
Not only did you have to do the work, you had to do more, because you had to prove yourself.
Yeah.
So the standards have always been higher for us, regardless of our education, regardless of our positions, regardless of whatever we bring to the table because of our complexion and our ethnicities.
Now we're talking with Dr. Elaine Ferguson. Excuse me, I've got a lot going on this morning. Dr. Elaine Ferguson, she's a wonderful a woman. She's a PBS host. She's a best-selling author, and obviously she's a physician. Talk to me about going into Duke. What made, first of all, when you were going to college, when you were a young girl, did you know you wanted to be a physician?
Yes.
And what made you choose Duke?
What made me choose Duke?
Yeah.
Well, Duke was the best school I got into in terms of medical schools. At the time, it was
that was the best
3.
school you got into. So where were you applying?
Well, I applied to several schools. I can't remember. Let me just be honest with you. I really wanted to go to Howard.
Oh, okay.
I really did.
I
wanted to have the Black experience in its totality.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there was a Brown student a year before me who went to Howard and quit, so they weren't letting in Brown students, because I really did want to go to Howard.
Brown students.
Yeah, so Duke was ranked number 3 at the time.
Oh.
And it was the best school that I had applied to, quite honestly. I didn't want to go to Harvard or Yale or any of the Ivy League schools.
Oh, well, yeah, of course not. Why go there?
No, as I said, I wanted to go to Howard. I mean, seriously. And so I decided to go to Duke.
Yeah.
And my parents are from South Carolina, so I had at the time I thought about living in the South, so I thought Duke would be, a good entree in terms of making that decision.
Now, when you get into medical school and you start to go through the courses and things like that, what discipline did you kind of feel you were going to be drawn to? I mean, which specialty?
Well, I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician when I was 10.
Oh, so there you go. You wanted you were 10 years old. You were a kid yourself.
Yes, I decided, and I never changed my mind.
Yeah. So you ended up you graduated and became a pediatrician.
Yes, I came to Chicago to do my training in pediatrics at the University of Chicago.
Now, I've got 2 very close friends of mine. One's a psychiatrist. One is a pediatrician, Dr. Walker. You might know him, Dr. Roland Walker. And I always kind of, ask them and, different things, and we talk all the time. And a lot of times, off the record, I'm putting it on the record now because we're saying on the radio, they tend to kind of find themselves drawn to I guess, what is it called? Homeopathic or holistic medicine.
Yes.
And so explain that, because you describe yourself now as a holistic physician. So, you know, with an MD from Duke running around pediatrician, why are you throwing that holistic in there?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, let me just add that after I went into practice, I was drawn into the realm of family medicine.
Yeah.
And I started seeing adults as well. So when I was in medical school, I had a few awakenings, I'll call it, I'll describe it in that regard, where I was in awe of the human body.
Yeah.
It's such a magnificent creation.
It is.
And I wasn't told that in medical school. This was an observation in terms of the magnificence of its functioning and how it functions in harmony from a physiological perspective. And I remember just having questions about how did the soul interact with the body, because we weren't taught that.
How dare you bring that
yes,
up?
exactly. You don't have a soul. You know, you're a machine. That's what we were taught in that Western paradigm. And during medical school, I saw miracles happen. I saw events in terms of the spontaneous remission of diseases among many patients that my professors couldn't explain.
Yeah.
And let's see, along the course of my training, my father, who was really my health guru, my dad was light years ahead of the population in terms of his understanding of health, because he grew up as a farmer, so he grew up eating fresh fruits and vegetables. And my father started telling me how he was taking vitamin supplements when I was a resident. And my teaching was, that's a waste of your money.
That's nonsense.
Yeah, but Daddy was having such significant improvements in terms of his energy level and how he felt. So I started taking vitamins when I was a resident, and I saw a difference. And that was the beginning, and also in terms of my curiosity about the soul, about wanting to know more than just giving my patients surgery, recommending surgery and medications and diagnostics. I knew there was more that I could do for them. I just didn't know what.
Do you still get invited to the AMA conferences?
Well,
no, because I love what you're saying.
Well, thank you. A holistic approach is now called for mainstream medicine, integrative medicine.
Okay.
So there's been a recognition of the shortcomings of Western medicine.
Yeah.
They are quite significant.
Now, well, let me ask you this real quick, because you know, you kind of piqued my curiosity. I remember, and you know, one of the things I remember first hearing when I was this was my first like 3 weeks down at Tuskegee Veterinary School, and you know, obviously there's this talk that they give you an orientation about you all medical doctors and how veterinarians are unappreciated and all that kind of stuff. But you kind of led me to the question where you seemed to get a little bit disillusioned with medicine and things at that time. Was human medicine becoming a little bit too relying a little bit too much on pharmaceuticals and things like that? Because
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We have to understand, and most don't know this because the history isn't shared, but basically Western medicine in the United States in particular, there was literally a coup d'etat back in the early 1900s in which wealthy business persons such as Rockefeller and others decided, based on their business interests, to fund medical education and thus gain control over what we call allopathic or Western medicine.
Yes.
So because there were many schools of natural healing, homeopathy, herbal medicine, etc., as well as there were 7 black medical schools. Most don't know that.
Yeah. Most of us just know Meharry and
how they are the survivors. Now there's Drew as well as another one at Morehouse.
Yeah.
But in the early 1900s, there were 7. There were 4, I believe, in Tennessee. There were a couple in North Carolina. One was at Shaw University. And these business interests, people decided to reign in control, so they did it through the Flexner Report. And Abraham Flexner was a person who went around and did a survey and developed standards, and it basically wiped out the other 5 black medical schools and many others, as well as all of the schools of natural healing. So this Western allopathic drug-based pharmaceutical approach took over because those who had the money were involved in the pharmaceutical industry.
See?
Most don't know that chemotherapy came from the leftover products of World War II, came from nerve gas.
Yeah.
They said, well, we have this leftover, let's see if we can turn it into a drug.
Yeah, and they did.
Yes, and that's what continues to happen. Even to this present day, leftover products of warfare are used to create new drugs.
I love you, Dr. Elaine. I really do. I mean, because I could take you down this road of my thoughts on medicine and Western medicine, as you kind of alluded to. But I want to get to your book and some of the work that you do now, because I think that this is kind of significant, and the background in the conversation we just had kind of leads up into that. So tell me about the book that you are out promoting now.
Well, the book I wrote a book a few years ago called Super Healing, Engaging Your Mind, Body, and Spirit to Create Optimal Health and Well-Being.
Yeah.
It's my second book. The first book I wrote on holistic medicine was almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
So I did an update. And honestly, I wrote it in response to my frustration about the world of holistic medicine, because holistic medicine in the United States is still very much mired and focused on the Western paradigm of treating diseases instead of promoting health.
Yeah.
The most important thing we can do as human beings is to take care of our health.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get sick.
No, you don't. It's expensive proposition as well.
It's extremely expensive now. And we know, quite honestly, that medicine itself has many side effects. You know, we know the harm that pharmaceuticals and diagnostics as well as treatment causes our patients. So it's best to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And this was my position throughout the COVID, the pandemic, is to take care of our health.
I'm so glad you were able to make it into this. This is a safe place for you, because I'm sure that during COVID, no one wanted to hear you. They were trying to keep you out of places.
Well, I've learned how to maneuver.
I like you.
And how to speak when I'm guided to speak. Because you want to speak to the audience and to those who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time just to talk to those who are going to fight you and disagree with you just on the purposes of their beliefs.
Now let me ask you this, because you sit here as a very credentialed, smart, intelligent physician, classically trained in Western medicine. Yet you are one, or even right now, you're very articulate and passionate about holistic medicine. The you and I both know the medical community does not like you. You add credibility to a discipline, and they like to, kind of leave to charlatans and quacks and people who think you should drink cayenne pepper and all this kind of stuff in order to cure your ills. Are there more people like that, like you out there? Are you one of the foremost medical doctors who have kind of gone out here and said, listen, I know what they're teaching over there, but I am 110% believer in this?
Well, that was my experience back in the 80s.
Yeah, they didn't like you one bit, did they?
No, but it's okay. But currently, there is a whole world of integrative and holistic medicine, and it has literally become a part of mainstream medicine in limited ways. As I said before, the most important thing is to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That to me is the fundamental principle of holistic medicine is to help our patients stay healthy, not to treat.
Yeah.
The body is magnificent. It is an amazing creation. We don't talk about it in those terms. We talk about it as if it's a machine, and it's not.
Yeah.
It is a divine creation.
Yeah.
And if you treat it right and give it what it needs, it will serve you well.
Now, have you had the opportunity, please tell me you have, to, I guess, mentor, intersect with young doctors before they get kind of mired in the system? I'm sorry, I'm asking because when you go out here and you start to get your practice open, and then here comes John from, Eli Lilly, and then you start looking at those bills coming in, and then these pharmaceutical companies start coming through, offering you checks, and next thing you know, you're part of the system. Do you get to talk to some of these doctors and kind of talk to them, with the knowledge that you have, before they get all caught up in this? Please tell me. Yes.
Yes, I have.
Thank God.
And as I said, there's a lot more physicians and other healthcare practitioners and providers who are who have become more fully engaged in the notion of holistic health and medicine as well as wellness. And the internet has essentially exploded this field in terms of, I have clients all over the world, honestly, because your audiences can be the world.
Yes.
So there's great potential and there's much more engagement. You just don't hear about it in mainstream because it doesn't serve that purpose, the purpose of the pharmaceuticals. But I'm quite happy to see what's going on beyond what we see in the media in general.
We're talking with Dr. Elaine Ferguson. She is just an amazing woman, and I could talk to her for 2 hours, and she knows it. But before, I want to ask you a couple more questions. First of all, let's go back to COVID. And, you know, we know about the way that information, and we're not going to get into the politics of it and things like that, but let's just put it this way. Somebody who has your philosophy would probably, you know, not be allowed to necessarily put that out on social media. You would kind of be censored because it's running counterproductive to the vaccine conversation. How was that for you going through COVID, knowing what you know?
Well, I did what I could do. I did my best, and we did have online seminars to help people understand their how to boost the immune system and how to take care of their health and well-being.
Yeah.
But I didn't engage with social media because you're exactly right. Why set yourself up to be discredited and censored? So I just worked around it in terms of the connections and networks of contacts that I have to share the information with those who are willing to listen.
Yeah. Now tell me about healing circles.
Yes. Well, one of the most important aspects of my work has become, over the last couple of years, to help African people of African descent, African Americans in particular, understand the impact that racism, our experiences of racism, has on our health and well-being.
Yeah.
Racism, in and of itself, in terms of our daily exposures, is quite toxic. Mm-hmm. We don't think about it in terms of how it impacts our health. Yes, we feel upset and distressed when we have those assaults, but over the course of our lives, it is quite toxic because we're chronically distressed by these dehumanizing experiences, the experiences of assault, psychological assault, and spiritual assault, as well as the trauma that we experience when we see on television the murders of unarmed Black men and women. So we live in quite a toxic environment. It's nothing different from what our ancestors survived and overcame. In some regards, it's less significant in terms of the open-air violence that we experience, but now it's much more covert. So my work over the last year in particular has been to provide our community with tools and resources that will help them to counter this impact of the stress and the increased incidence of hypertension, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, as well as premature death. And one of the things that most of us don't realize is that the higher we go, the more educated we become, the sicker we become due to our exposure, our professional exposure in the workplace and offices, and et cetera, to racism. It is literally shortening our lives. Dr. David Williams, who's a Harvard researcher, he came from University of Michigan as a sociologist of West Indian extract, and he's proven through a very simple survey called the Everyday Racism or Everyday Discrimination Survey that our exposures, the severity of our exposures is directly related to our health. Yes. And the more we expose, the sicker we become. But the good news is that we can stop that harm through becoming aware of the inner resources that we have. We have the capacity to overcome anything. We just have to change our mindset, how we respond, how to stop reacting, how to gain a sense of self that is protective. So last year we launched a healing circle online, which is a safe place where we come together, and we have members from across the globe, from the U.S. to the U.K. to Italy and Africa, and we talk about our experiences of racism in a safe and sacred place, because we tend to think we're alone, that what happened to us was unique, nobody else. No, yes, it's unique in the sense it happened to us, but there are trends
Right.
and that everyone experiences.
Yeah.
And just having a safe place to be honored and acknowledged without judgment is tremendously healing.
Now let me ask you this, because you know when you were talking about, you know, the racism and these environmental stressors, as it were, that really affect our health, and I'm a believer in the environment affecting our health. I want to ask you, as a pediatrician, your thoughts on social media. We are seeing the increase on young people, but you know, you can weigh in on adults as well. But I want to ask you about young people, because we're seeing an increase in teen suicide. Just overall, young ladies on Instagram with bad body images and just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And is it? I guess I've got a two-parter. First of all, do you believe that it's harmful, and that, you know, we should, if you're a parent, maybe pick an age when you think that your child might be mature enough to handle the judgment and everything that comes with social media? And then, do you think that the toothpaste is out of the tube and it's too late to go back anyway?
No, okay. Yes, it is definitely harmful.
Yes.
Television's harmful.
Yeah.
So social media is an unfortunate extension of that harm. Yes, parents need to exert parental control and protect their children from this onslaught
Yes.
of toxicity, especially African American children who are being bullied. You know, it's bad enough to be bullied at school. Now you got to be bullied 24/7.
Yes.
So yes, it is incumbent upon us to take charge of our children's exposure to toxicity, as well as our own.
Absolutely. We're kind of coming up on it, but I want you, please, because I'm going to be talking with you when we get off this about a lot of things. But let our audience know, number one, where they can get your books, because I think that, number one, I'm a student of what you're teaching. I'm letting you know that now.
Oh,
so how
you.
can they get some of your literature? And then I want to know where you are on PBS. This is a Jeff question. How can I find some of your programming? And, you know, how can people get in contact with you? Get on join these healing circles. Do you have a firm around here where a person like, I don't know, some radio guy maybe can come in and lay down 3 or 4 times a week and talk? I mean, just kind of give us your information.
Well, my website is really simple, which is the site of all of our information about contacting me and our programs and resources, as well as my book that's available. And that's DRs and drelaine.com, DRELAINE.com. Make it real simple,
Yeah.
so I can remember. Yeah, so if they want more information about our programs, that's where they can go, as well as to order the book. I do everything virtually now.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you can be a client, but we meet on Zoom.
Okay, all right.
And as I said, we have clients all over the world now, and we meet on Zoom. Or I do from time to time, if my clients are local, I guess I meet with them locally as well. But the internet is such a blessing if it's used properly. So it's helped us to quickly make our resources, particularly with the healing circles and our Rise and Thrive program, which is the name of our program to help heal racism's harm, to make it available around the world.
And please tell me you do some public speaking too, because I can think right now of a couple of groups, and I'm going to kind of go towards young people.
Yes.
Because I do think you resonate, and I mean you're a very pleasant person to talk to, just period. But I'm talking about what you're saying. Is I think that there are young people right now that really need to hear that, because what better time to start taking care of yourself and not get sick than when you're young.
The sooner the better.
Yes.
And our young people, I love this and that's why I became a pediatrician.
Yeah.
Our children really are our best teachers.
Yes.
Because they still have access to the truth of who they are before becoming.
I know where you're going with this. I like it.
Yes, they still have access to it. So yes, I love
before social media gets them.
Before social media, the schools, and all of the dynamics. There's a book I would recommend. It's called the Tavistock Institute.
Okay.
And it talks about, it's out of England, and the Tavistock Institute is a think tank, and it's the source of all of the challenges. I hate to say it like that, but the psychological challenges and psychological warfare blueprint against the Western world and humanity in general came out of the Tavistock Institute in terms of social engineering and controlling the mind.
Oh, know you're on the right show. I know this kind of was happenstance,
yes.
but you do realize you're on the right show for what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Nothing happens by chance, and I'm so grateful that Chelsea put us together.
Oh my God, because yeah, I'm so glad I found you. I really am,
bless
because,
you. Well, likewise.
But I want to invite you back whenever you get an opportunity, please, because I want to go a lot further in this. I definitely think that your methods are applicable to our community. I think that people can use it, and I really do. And I think there's just so many questions I have. Listen, here's what I'm going to do. If you don't mind, put those headphones on. I want to get you a call real quick because I think that you're resonating out here in the streets.
Let's go, Doc.
Let's go to the phones. Caller, how you doing? Good morning. Hey, good morning.
I don't hear anything.
Can you hear? Try those other headphones real quick. I apologize.
That's okay.
Give her an opportunity. Say it again, Miss Ledbetter. Can you hear now?
Yes, I can hear now. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. Oh, it's on tape. It's going to be out there. Chelsea's recording it, and so you go online. Well said. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Ledbetter. Go ahead.
My thought first of all, thank you for sharing, and I just want to. I'll answer your question. I want to add something else. Iridology is an ancient science that makes diagnoses through the observation of changes in the eye, and it's been used all over the world, and it's very accurate in many regards. It's of course one of the disciplines that was determined to be ineffective by the Western standards, but there is a great history of its effectiveness in terms of making diagnoses. What I want to share with you also, something you said about what you had to learn. African people have a connection to the intelligence that comes from the divine. Mm-hmm. And many times in the Western world, in Western medicine, there have been significant contributions made by men of African descent in particular who were not educated, such as Vivian Thomas, who was at Johns Hopkins and helped to train a legion of surgeons because he was a genius and helped with the blue baby syndrome with Dr. Blaylock. And I just learned this week of a South African brother. I think his name is Haki. His last name is Hamilton. I think his first name was Haki. He was in on the first heart transplant.
Wow.
And participated.
Yeah.
And had been hired as a gardener. But had such great skills. He grew in terms of his understanding of the human heart without going to medical school, and worked side by side with Christian Barnard.
Oh my goodness.
There is a documentary out about him, as well as one about Vivian Thomas, and I call him Doctor because he received an honorary degree.
Yeah.
So this is our genius.
See, we got to get you. Do you understand that you just heard from that caller? There is a need, an audience for you out there. You do know that, don't you? And so once again, please give your website address. And I'm sure people are going to go online and look at this interview. Because I could keep you here all day, and the phone calls are coming in already. So real quick, I'll get one more phone call before you get out of here because, like I said, you are resonating with people this morning. Caller, how you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Yes. Oh, that's
Oh,
so sweet. Is this
oh.
Mary? Yes,
Yes, it
yes,
is.
I know who you
I know that
are.
sweet
Bless
voice.
your heart. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you,
thank
Miss Rita.
you.
You have a great day. That was nice. See what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you.
And so once again, is it Dr.
Yes, drelaine.com.
Yes, and everything that we need, including, as I said, if there's a guy out here, I know a guy that might want to talk to you a couple times a week about his health. But anyway,
Yes.
all things can be answered on that
Absolutely.
website.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, give me your PBS schedule. Are you still on? Do they or different syndicated?
Well, that
program?
was a few years ago,
Yeah.
but my program Super Healing Secrets is available online as
Okay.
well as on DVD.
Yeah.
And that information is on my
Super
website.
Healing Secrets. All right,
Yes.
I'm gonna go get it. All right,
Yes.
and next time we talk, I'll be a lot more versed about Super Healing Secrets. But
Okay.
I just learned a lot, and I'm so charged up right now going
Thank
into the
you.
weekend. This was an absolute pleasure, and I got to sit across. I can say on my show I had a brown girl and a Duke person on here as well, all in one. So I knocked two
Thank
birds out with one
you.
stone. All right, thank you very much. That was a great show. We had a great show today. I want to, of course, thank the mayor. I want to thank Dr. Elaine. I want to thank Mike Brown. I want to thank Seawit for doing all this. And